trying to figure out the best way to do it. Because I don't think you can have the same cigar every year on it either. So it's kind of a tightrope, so to speak. But the hard part about that is you got to know when the cigar was actually produced.
Oh,
And
right. Okay. So
that's
yeah,
the part.
you
Yeah.
have a cigar now. You got to track down.
Yeah.
Well, is this box that I got? Was this from 2 years ago? Is this a box from last year? So that does seem like a challenge.
So yeah, there's some challenges with that. Exactly. But I think there's some merit into the way Cigar Aficionado does it. It's just I don't know if and I'm still a small media outlet. I don't know if that's something I can go to. But online media is going to have to change it at some point because there's probably not going to be enough to come out. And like I said, are you going to consider it when it was initially released in the market, when it was widespread? And I think this year people will consider when it was widespread. And so I think this year will be fine. Next year will be interesting.
I gotcha. Okay, so all right, so I wasn't pulling that out of left field there. So it is definitely having an impact on that. To what extent is from one reviewer to the next, I suppose.
But I think there's an exciting way to consider every cigar from year to year, regardless of when it was released, because it kind of adds this different dimension to the whole game. So I kind of look at it as a challenge. It's not. Don't get me wrong. I don't like the FDA, but if this is something that's kind of a different challenge I can put in front of me, I'm looking forward to that.
Well, it'll probably become a consumer challenge too. We'll all be going to the stores and be like, "Hey, do you have this cigar? But do you have the one that was released 3 years ago? Because that's the one that Will Cooper gave a really high rating on just recently."
And that's important to know. You see someone has a 95 rating from 10 years ago. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a 95 rated cigar now.
Oh, and I see that too. So there's already the other way to look at it. Okay, very interesting.
Yep.
So we did mention at the beginning here the IPCPR. For those unfamiliar with that is the International Premium Cigar and Pipe Retailer Convention. This year it was held in Vegas, and basically it's a convention for the most part for manufacturers and retailers. And since the average enthusiast like myself and other guys out there aren't really able to participate, I know that you were there. I was hoping you could at least just maybe share some of the highlights from this year's convention, and then if you're able to, maybe just a general comparison of this year's convention versus maybe some of the ones over the past few years.
Sure. Well, you're media now, so you should definitely consider going.
That's true.
But so this was it was an interesting convention this year. Last year's convention had this malaise over it because the August 8th date that the regulations were going in place with FDA were going into place. This year, it was a little bit of a different. I think there was a little more optimism. There were a lot of people who did stay home. Attendance supposedly was down 14 or 15%. A lot of that was due to a big tax increase out of California, which basically went into effect July 1st, and basically the tax hits the retailers. So a lot of retailers in California said, well, we're not going to go to the trade show, which is the place they do a lot of purchasing.
Yeah.
They'll do it the year before. Not the year before, the month before, do a big purchase because there was no point in getting hit with that tax.
Oh.
So there was some of that. Some of the smaller manufacturers now are feeling FDA costs of compliance, so they stayed home. So it was a smaller show. I didn't think it was a bad show because I think the people who went were buying, and there was still some very popular booths. Now, I think there were a couple of stories at the show. The biggest story that I think really hasn't been covered, and this was, in my opinion, the story of the show, was the launch of Plasencia cigars at the show. Now, why this is big is the Plasencias, they've been in business since 1865. Primarily, they've been growers, and they've made cigars for other people. But this is the first time, they've put their name on a few cigars, but this is the first time they're going to market and distributing and will be selling their cigars with a distribution company. So they launched Plasencia cigars, and they put on a clinic as far as a media launch goes. It kind of reminded me a little of what Habanos does. A lot of companies could learn from what the Plasencias did as far as launching a company and launching a product, but at the same time, a lot of the companies aren't as big as the Plasencias. To me, that was historic. That was the first time they ever had a booth. So that was my story of the show. The other thing that I think is the big story is the package. There was so many packaging changes this year. I never saw this many packaging changes, and I think there were a couple of drivers for that. One is that there's going to be warning labels that need to be put on as part of the FDA regulations. So they had to make some changes. But the other thing is there's some talk that there may be, like, there was a court ruling as far as the regulations go that came from the cigarette company, but it applied to the cigar industry, and it basically allowed a brand, a cigar brand, to change its packaging, right? So you didn't have to get, as long as you were in compliance with the warning labels, you're fine. But I think a lot of companies are worried that may reverse, so they wanted to get their packaging changes in now.
Oh, well, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Now, with that Plasencia, I hope I'm saying that right, Plasencia.
Plasencia.
But, how many cigars did they roll out?
They had rolled out. They already had launched one earlier in the year called Alma Fuerte. They rolled out two other ones. One was called Alma de Campo, and the other one was called the Coseca. The other one was a Coseca, and the other name just I blanked on it, but it's the other one was the Coseca. Oh, it was the Coseca 146, meaning the 146 harvest of the Plasencias.
So, and I'm sure as the year goes along, then you'll have plenty to write about. Have you actually reviewed any of those yet? You said one came out earlier.
I have not yet, but I'm planning on it because I think it's some of the best cigars that they've put out.
Yeah, I'm sure you're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
All right. So finally, my last main question here before we hit the lightning round is from my own perspective, when I take a look at the industry today, I'd comment on it. The way I'd comment on it is by saying that the multi-country blending is just huge right now, perhaps as big as it's ever been. And I know every few years there's a different country that kind of takes the crown for popularity, and Nicaragua seems to be that country right now. I was just curious, do you agree with that perspective, and how do you see the industry right now, and what changes would you predict 5-10 years down the road?
Yeah, I think the big thing that really led to the and a lot of people would probably disagree with me on this. This is just my opinion. I think when the rise of the Ecuadorian wrappers, that kind of led to a lot of these multinational blends, because we don't really have Ecuadorian produced cigars, but most of the time the wrappers are being sourced from Ecuador. I think that led to it. There's always cycles when it comes to the tobaccos, and a lot of it has to do with yield, and a lot of it has to do with price. So, a few years ago, there was a big rise in San Andreas from Mexico. That became very, very trendy. But then there was some. Basically, I heard it got more expensive. It got a little more harder to get. So when you can't get San Andreas, you go to you find something else, whether it's Connecticut broadleaf, whether it's Ecuadorian Maduro, So there are these cycles that I find are kind of going all around in the industry. I'm curious to see, Nicaragua is not known for its wrappers.
Right.
And I'm curious at some point, with the people who are growing tobacco, and this is just my opinion again, the people who are growing tobacco in Nicaragua, are they going to try to do what Carlito Fuente did in the 90s, which is he proved you could put a Dominican wrapper on a cigar when he came out with Opus X. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's some Nicaraguan wrappers already, but I think that one wrapper that can kind of change and revolutionize the industry, that's my prediction. I think that's what's going to happen in the next few years, because that will change the whole game once there's a good quantity of wrapper in Nicaragua.
I totally get that, and I was just having yesterday I'm sure you have had it, but the Charter Oak by Nick Melillo's Foundation cigar.
Yep.
And it's pretty much, I think it's all Nicaraguan except then it has the Connecticut broadleaf. A wrapper.
Yes.
But I was just thinking, dude, there's a cigar right there. Now, he did it for different reasons, but there's a cigar right there. Pretty much everything's Nicaraguan, but not a Nicaraguan wrapper.
Yeah, exactly. There are Nicaraguan wrappers. There are. It's just like I said, a lot of the tobaccos tend to play well with Ecuadorian and Connecticut's.
And that San Andreas has been so popular, but you just mentioned that the price kind of went up a little bit. So who knows? Maybe they can find something comparable and similar there.
Right, and that's why there was less of it this year. And I think some of it, obviously companies want to change and do different trends, but a lot of times that's what drives these things. Are just like the price of gold or whatever. It's different things that are happening out there when you source tobacco.
Mm-hmm. Well, Will, I've learned a ton from you. I appreciate your time on this. So we're going to jump into the lightning round here. I got 3 final quick questions for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So Of course, rather than asking you what I'm sure most people like to ask, what is your favorite cigar? So I'm going to skip that and basically just say, tell me 2 cigars that are currently high in your personal rotation that you're enjoying these days currently.
It's funny. It's the whole concept of rotation is interesting because I don't rotate, but I guess there's ones I reach for more regularly. Mm-hmm. Right now, I could tell you that yes, Aladino's still in there. Okay, the Crux de Connoisseur, which was my number 1 cigar, that's definitely in there. Mm-hmm. They're a little more pricey. I really enjoy the Davidoff box press Nicaraguas. Mm-hmm. That's just it's a great cigar. It's a little more pricey, so I'll have that in there as well. And I think those are probably the 3 right now.
Okay,
I go with.
And now following up on that, what are some of your personal flavor characteristics that you personally enjoy and look for in a cigar? So that kind of Will Coop flavor profile, what kind of flavor do you generally gravitate towards in terms of the cigars that you like? I know you have to review everything and you probably have a palate for everything, but I'm sure there's a sweet spot of what you personally just enjoy and gravitate towards.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I don't like a lot of sweetness, right? I don't like floral notes, and I definitely don't like citrus or raisin. But so I tend to go for those coffee, earthy, smooth, creamy type of flavor. A little of that dark chocolate in there. Mm-hmm. I do like a cigar that keeps me interested and entertained. So it's not just smoke one and that's it.
Right. Some nice complexity in it.
Yeah.
Now, lastly, everybody's got their stuck on an island. If you were stuck on an island, you could just have one cigar. So my twist on that is, if you were stuck on an island and you had an endless supply of cigars, so no issue, no question on cigars, every cigar is available to you, but you could only have one beverage for the rest of your life that you could pair those cigars with. What would that be? So would that be A, coffee, B, whiskey, or C, something else?
It would definitely be a coffee. And probably since it's an island, I'd want a nice iced coffee there.
That's yeah. I was gonna say you can vary the coffee.
It's gotta be Kona. It's gotta be Kona. I love Kona coffee.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I'd probably agree with the same there as well. So, Will, I know you're a busy man. Thank you again for taking the time out and joining me. And one more time, if you want to remind everybody how they can follow you online.
Yeah, no, and thank you, Fred, for the opportunity. I love it. I hope we can do this again. But anyway, it is www.cigar-coop.com for the website. It's cigar_coop on Twitter, cigar_coop Instagram, and Cigar Coop on Facebook. And then the Smooth Drawers radio show is www.smoothdraws.com.
All right, awesome. Will Coop, thank you very much again. Everybody, thanks for tuning in, and definitely check out Cigar Coop online. Follow them on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever's most convenient for you, but definitely the podcast as well. I really enjoy this. So thanks again, Will Cooper. Have a great night.
Thank you, Fred.